I'm Jen.
I'm Carla.
I'm Myrna.
Hi, I'm Anjanette. Hello, Latter-day Women Warriors. Those of us who are joining us today, we're so grateful that you're here with us today and that you're going to be listening to our discussion today. We're not sure where the discussion's going to go today, so we're hoping that the Spirit is with us and that we're going to have some helpful discussions that will be helpful for us, but also for all of you who are joining us on the podcast today. So thank you for being with us. I want to start out today's discussion with some scriptures in Ecclesiastes. So this is Ecclesiastes 3, verses 1 through 8. And it says, "To everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up that which is planted, a time to kill, a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to get and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to cast away, a time to rend and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time of war and a time of peace." So we've got a lot of paradoxical principles happening in the scripture. And the reason I'm reading these scriptures is because today we're going to be talking about what it means when you come to a place in your life where you have a friendship with somebody, a relationship with somebody, and you need to bring it to an end. And how difficult that can be, and how that's really not talked about a lot, especially in friendships. It's definitely talked about in a romantic space when people are in a relationship and they're deciding to call it quits. But it's definitely not talked about in a relationship space with friendships. And it can be, in my opinion, just as painful as breaking up with the romantic relationships. And in some ways, it can be even more painful because, especially for those of us who are still single, like romantic relationships can come and go, but there are some friendships that you just count on being there for the rest of your life. And it's absolutely heartbreaking and heartrending when it comes to a place where you do need to say goodbye to a friendship or a long-lasting partnership of some kind. So I would love to throw this question out there to Kyla and Jen. What have been some of your experiences with having to end a friendship that you thought was going to be longer lasting than it was, you thought it was going to be, one of your people for life, and things did have to kind of come to an end, or maybe not completely come to an end, but they had to shift. They had to change the level of intimacy or the amount of frequency that you had. What are some of your experiences that you guys have had in that space?
That's not a broad, all-encompassing, painful question at all, Anjanette. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, I will say that I've struggled in life, and I've said it in other podcasts that we've done, with friendships. It might not look like it on the outside of things because I'm a pretty outgoing person. I like to meet new people. I like to hear people's life stories. I call myself a story collector. And that is, even though I am all of those things, I still struggle with actually keeping friendships. So what does that mean? I am in my late 40s, and most of the women I talk to, I know I'm not supposed to compare myself to other people, but I'm going to in this moment. Because I think it gives us a sense of kind of a base of things. So most of the women that I know that are in their 40s still have at least one friendship, and usually multiple, of women that they still, infrequent though it may be, people from high school that they're still in contact with. that they had their little group and they moved on in life, and yet they still touch base and have these conversations. And my mom is older. She's in her 90s, almost 90. Well, I aged her there a little bit. She's almost 90. And she still, for those of friends that are alive, she still has friends from when she was a teenager that she is in active contact with. I have one friend. It's very infrequent, and from high school. And she is a member of the church, which makes it a little easier, but it's very infrequent. We try to get together if she's out here in California visiting family. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But that is the closest, that's the only person from that time period. All the other people, I thought, and truthfully, I wouldn't have actually guessed that would be the person that I would actually be somewhat friends with down the road. My closest friend in high school that I thought we would be besties forever, we didn't. Like, she got married, I got married. I tried to contact her at different points. And for reasons I won't go into fully, we really haven't had that connection. I don't even know the name of her daughter. I only get information because of knowing someone who knows them. And they're like, oh, hey, in an awkward conversation where you don't know what to talk about. Hey, we know this mutual person. Oh, yeah, I heard about blah, blah. Oh, that's great. Kind of thing. And so for me, friendships just in general are tough. So having one friend-ish from high school that I'm friends with, that's nice. But this other person, like, it took me a long time to get over the fact that we were just not going to be friends into our adult lives. And weirdly, like, I probably have more dreams with this friend of mine than a lot. She pops up in my dreams at different moments, and sometimes, excuse me, sometimes I think it's because there's some place that she represents loss and mourning in my mind. So when I dream, she's like a representation of that. Mm-hmm. And it was really hard to get over because I really did like this friendship. I really did invest in it. We were friends almost all through high school for those 4 years of like freshman to senior. And we did so many summer road trips together with her family coming up to Utah. We went to EFY together. We did all of those things. And so to have all of that just drop out of your life in a moment was tough. I think the last time I actually really saw her was 20 years ago when my dad died. She came to the funeral. Hmm. And I'm sad about it. I don't really have people that I didn't know this was going to get me emotional, that I don't sit down with and have nostalgic moments about growing up and stuff in life. I just don't. I don't have that ability to sit around and talk about that. I don't come from a large family, and sometimes it's nice to just have those people that you sit down with and you talk about old times and you're growing up or the funny stories. And I don't have anyone to do that with in life. And that makes me completely sad.
Yeah. So I had a friendship that had been my longest friendship, and I thought we'd be friends forever. And we are no longer friends. And how that came about was very hard and traumatic for me. Towards the end of our friendship, I didn't realize it at the time or have words for it, but we were extremely codependent, like very dependent on. I was very dependent on her, like telling me how I should be feeling, like, and needing that, and vice versa. And so it wasn't a healthy friendship by the end of it. And it was around the time, it was when I had like come out to myself, realized I had these attractions to women. I realized I had an attraction to her. And I was having, and it was during when I was going through gay puberty. And during gay puberty, it's like, you know, all the emotions that most people feel during like their teenage going through normal puberty had been repressed. So then I'm I think I was 26 when I came out to myself, suddenly at that age having all these emotions and feelings and trying to figure out how to deal with it. So I'm realizing I have this attraction to this friend and having all those emotions that go with it. And I didn't want that. Like, I didn't want to be having these feelings towards this friend. Like, I wanted to be friends and not having these like sexual feelings. And so after like trying to figure out what to do, and it was just so overwhelming, and I finally talked to her about it. Not to be like, oh, I want to act on these feelings. It was the exact opposite, to say, I don't want to act on these feelings. I'm having them, and I'm thinking if I tell you that will help them go away, and that I can like acknowledge it and not have them like there was so much shame, and which, you know, if you don't look at the shame, it keeps growing. So it was becoming something that was affecting my everyday life in trying to navigate through it, and I was getting hard to even function. So like, I have to do something. And so I told her about the feelings, and that I didn't know what to do with them. I'm not wanting to act on them. I'm wanting them to go away, and I'm trying to figure that out. And again, and we were super codependent, that had been building up, but it was getting to a very unhealthy level. And at first she's like, oh, like, that's fine. But then super passive aggressive, super like explosive. But then I would say like, okay, like, what's wrong? Oh no, everything's fine. And so going off of what she was saying, and the actions were not matching up. And I'm like, it's all my fault, that all of the, like, everything, all the, any, whatever happening is all my fault. And after several months, then she had told me, you know, actually, I've just been pretending this whole time, and how dare you not realize that? How dare you not realize I was going through all these hard things, and like that, why would you be like that you're attracted to me? Like, gross. Yeah, you're like harmful to me, and all many things, and blindsided me. And because of the amount of codependency, and I had like pushed kind of a lot of other people out of my life. So this was like the one person that I was talking to. It was so devastating. And it felt like my world crumbled. And she had told me, like, you know, like, but pretend everything's fine for when we're around our other mutual friends and other people. Like, pretend everything's fine. And so I tried that for a little bit, and it was not sustainable. And then later she told me, don't communicate with me, don't talk with me. And so I haven't. So I've respected that. And it's actually been a very healthy thing that I was able to learn about what codependency was, and how having one person that's your only one person, that's not healthy. You need to have lots of different people. Learned and like I've been able to grow from that, but no one knew for quite a while that even that we weren't talking. Like it several months before I thought everything that had happened was 100% my fault. And I know now it's not. But at the time I believed like it's all my fault. And so I had so much shame. And so I eventually started telling like a few people just because I couldn't contain it all. So like a few very trusted people. And so that helped with working on some of that shame. But in counseling for about a year, I believe, and I had gotten a letter from her that said all these things that were some like partial truth and then some, anyway. And I believed everything that had been in it. And it took me a year to kind of figure out like, oh, some of this stuff is nothing to do with me. It's her own stuff. And trying like figure out, okay, what can I work on? I can work on me. I can't work like nothing on her. And it took me a year to even realize like I'm not a bad, awful, disgusting, terrible person that I had been told I was. And so that friendship ending, and then also how long it had been a deep friendship. So we had lots of mutual friends and so that made it very hard to be around other things that reminded me of that, because everything reminded me of it for so long. But it was such a devastating thing, but like no one knew for so long. And still, because I only want to tell my story and things, so I don't focus on that. But like if someone has like a death or they get divorced or like all these other things, like everyone's like, oh, I'm so sorry. How can you help? Like, but when a friendship ends, especially with how mine ended, no one knew. So I'm in this like mourning and trying to figure out how to go forward, how to have trust in other people again, how to have healthy friendships, not just one, but have multiple friendships. So if one of my current friendships crumbles, I will never be in that level of devastation that I was, because I have other friends. Like it will definitely be sad to lose other friends, but never to that level that it was, in the amount of destruction that I felt like my life had been in. And yeah.
Thank you for being willing to share, Kyla and Jen, those stories. I know that for me, my hardest breakups in life have been friendships. It's not to say that I haven't had a hard romantic breakup, but they really have been friendships that have been the most difficult for me to deal with. I probably have a couple that I could talk about, but I'll talk about one in particular. I had a female friend, and we became very close friends very fast. And it was a very good, strong, healthy friendship starting out. It was and I really did think, okay, this is like my best friend for life. This person's awesome. We like read each other. Like we have so many things in common and common goals and interests. And she just gets me. And so the friendship progressed, and it eventually got to a place where it got pretty unhealthy and toxic because it was so highly codependent. So I really relate to what you're saying, Kyla. And I know, Jen, you understand too. We've had discussions about things. And I just realized very slowly, one red flag at a time, that a lot of the things that were happening in our friendship were not healthy, that her perceptions on things were not in the best place, and my perceptions were getting really distorted because of my codependency. So we're just kind of feeding on each other's toxicity. And eventually I had kind of a wake-up call where I realized this is not turning out the way that I thought that it was going to be. And so I made the decision, the very prayerful decision, to have a conversation with her about things, and just to kind of bring up some things that I was concerned about, maybe some things that we were kind of getting wrong in how we thought about things and how we saw other people outside of our friendship in our lives. And I was extremely prayerful. I fasted, I prayed, because I wanted to come to the conversation with an open heart, a humble heart, to be able to take ownership for the things that I needed to take ownership for, and to make sure that the spirit of contention was nowhere to be found, and that I could listen to what it is that she had to say and not raise my voice, and not for things to get heated. And that's exactly how I approached that conversation. I kept my tone of voice completely calm, my talking slow, which is hard for me because I'm a fast talker. So I could try to invite as much of the spirit as possible. And it was a very interesting learning experience for me, because as I started asking these questions and started, to be honest, kind of confronting her on some very important things, I saw a side to her that I had never seen before. And she started getting very defensive, and she started getting very antagonistic. And how dare you come into my home and accuse me of these things? And who do you think you are? And I realized this person's not the person that I thought that she was. Because I know if somebody were to come to me in a conversation and confront me on some things that I was doing wrong, I would have a very different approach. And it's not to say that I'm better than she is, but I would be like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that I was affecting you like this. I had no idea that my choices were doing that to you. How can we make this better? I apologize. I want to change my behavior. Can we figure out a way through this? But that was not her. She began to attack, and she yelled and she screamed. And so I realized from that conversation, this person was not the person that I thought that she was in my codependency, and that I needed to walk away from that friendship. And it was one of the best decisions in my life at that time. But oh my goodness, it was difficult. Like, I definitely went through a mourning period of many months, many months, feeling like I didn't know who I was. I didn't know how to have friends moving forward, because if that's the person that I thought was going to be my best friend for life, I sure know how to pick them. And it was a very distorted process that I went through. For me personally, I had to go to extra meetings with my addiction recovery and with spouse and family support meetings as well, because I needed people to reflect back to me true principles and just truths about myself, because my self-perception had gotten just so distorted because I saw everything through her lens. Mm-hmm. And so I really, for me, the hardest breakups in my life have been friendships. And they have been the ones that have been the most devastating. And they have been the ones that I have learned the most from about myself and about codependency, and how to have healthier friendships moving forward. I definitely understand what you've said, Kyla, and also what I know you've said, Jen, as well, where you need to have more than one friend. Yes. Because not all friendships stay in the same place forever. And some friendships ebb and flow, and some friendships kind of take a step forward in your life and they become more important, and other friendships take a step back and they become less important. So that's definitely been my experience. I want to ask you guys, like, in your experiences with friendships that have needed to either end or they definitely needed to take a major step back, what were the things that kind of cued you off where that's what needed to happen? Because, I mean, when you're in a friendship with somebody, you deeply and legitimately care about that person. It's oftentimes when we make these decisions, this is not something that you want to step away from because they're a good person and you love having them in your life and they bring good things to your life, right? Which is why it makes it so hard to step away. So what are some of the things that for you became like, okay, this is the line that I need to set. This is the boundary that I need to set. We need to reevaluate this person in my life.
I don't actually know if I've had to reevaluate fully if I wanted a person in my life, but definitely the ebb and flow of friendships. That definitely happens where a friendship, like for instance, Kyla, we met at a point in a group. And slowly we just started to talk and have other conversations, and our friendship grew line upon line. And we've now been really close friends for what, like 3-4 years now? Something like that.
Yeah, like 2021, I think.
Yeah. And
it was a slow,
a very slow,
like super fast. I should know everything about each other. It was slow process. I didn't even realize.
I know. I think the two of us were somewhat guarded because we knew at that point that we both experienced same-sex attraction and we both had seen those instantaneous besties in life. Mm-hmm. And it was a slow process of getting to know each other and being there for each other at different points. And that was great. And as a friendship increases and moves towards closer levels, a higher level of friendship, we've talked about it if you haven't watched it, we have a great podcast about friendships. In fact, a couple of them. And what we talk about in there is kind of this scale of your level 1 friend to a level 5 friend. And a level 5 friend is your closest, most frequent, most intimate friendship. And Kyle's one of my level 5 friends. And that grew. However, I've grown those friendships only later in life. Like I said, I've struggled with actually having friendships. And there is one friendship that I've had. And we were level 5 friends for a really long time. For like 6 years. And this person started making different life choices. And naturally, the friendship started to not be as frequent. And then that frequency, instead of being at least weekly, it moved to maybe we talked once a month, then it backed out to every few months. And now I don't remember the last time we fully just talked. It's been months. But that's because her life has changed. And because of me not having a lot of long-term friendships, that one has been like the kick in the gut. You two both heard a bunch about it. And it probably took me 1.5 years to work myself mourning through it. Because I came to depend upon that friendship in my life as a sounding block, as a place to vent, as a place to laugh, as a lot of things. And when that left, or as that was leaving, I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't know what to do with that morning, kind of like what Kyla said. And it's a kick in the gut like nothing else. And It's been one of the greatest sadnesses of my life. And I'm trying to now figure out how to be the friend at this new level. I think it's exciting and fun, and you get to know each other on the way up. But when you're going from a level 5 friend down to a level 3 friend, like there's no manual on that as well. I mean, okay, there might be some great books out there about friendships and when things end and mourning things that, aren't like death and whatnot. But that backwards movement, what do you say? You experience a death. And there's no way to fully talk about it with a lot of people because they're like, oh, so you're not friends anymore. It's always ebb and flow. It's always just back and forth. Sometimes here. No, it feels devastating. It's like your heart is being ripped out of your chest with a spoon. And I don't know where you go from there because you have all of this intimate knowledge, all of this intimate information about a person. And all of a sudden, now when you would have a very intense conversation about things happening in your life and you can shortcut it all because they know everything that's happening up to date, now it moves backwards. And now you're talking about the weather. Or you're talking about your kids only. Or you're talking about, just, oh, this funny story happened with a lady in the grocery store the other day. There's nothing that fully prepares you for that experience in life.
Definitely.
And I found it extremely painful and hard. And frankly, this topic is just so racked with torment for me. I don't even know if I answered your question because I forgot what it was. Sorry, Angie.
No, you answered it beautifully. It is hard to discern when friendships need to change and they need to evolve.
It is hard because there's no full. Well, I'm glad that you saw some red flags for you. But there's no manual on it. There's no, oh, the two of us are talking. It's not like your spouses in that way, right? It's not like it's your spouse and you're having these conversations because you're doing daily life together. And, maybe red flags happen and you have to discuss it and make your life move forward. But when it comes to friendships, that's not a romantic relationship. And so they do ebb and flow to me nowadays. But when you find those people who meet that level 5 requirements that you're needing or whatnot in life, requirement was a very harsh word, but I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to stick with my guns on that one, guys. Requirements of being able to connect with you on the frequency, and you have a lot of positive experiences that you're putting in there together, and that it seems to be mutual, back and forth. When it goes askew, and you're left with a hole. And what do you do with holes in your heart? I'm so glad that Jesus heals the brokenhearted, because I have had a lot of brokenheartedness in life. And a lot of it deals with friendships, because like Kyla talked about, that friendship, and I've talked about friendships here. And I was that person who was a weird friend for a really long time until I got my act together. And a lot of people had a lot of uncomfortable conversations with me to try and explain to me that I was a weird friend. I've had somebody sit me down to have that conversation. I was on the other side of that conversation before, Angie. I think I took it well, and we were able to stay friends. But I went through friends in very quick ways, like 6 months, not even a year. And the only reason it went longer is because we were coworkers. And I just cycled through people really, really fast. And it blows my mind to this day that there are places where we live for 6 years or this or that, or over here for 3 years. And I'm a member of the church. So we were in wards and in a lot of different wards and met a lot of different people and people that I considered close friends at the time. And whenever we moved, the contact was done. It's never traveled with me. No one's ever contacted me from any other ward that I've ever been in. And that told me something about friendship. It does ebb and flow. And yet all I tended to do was see people in these long-term friendships, and it hurt. Because I didn't understand what I was doing that made me unfriendable. But I was codependent, and I had behaviors and friendships that weren't great. And nobody had the full guts to tell me to my face what I was doing. And I understand why they don't do that, because they're afraid I'm going to take it wrong and start yelling and screaming like your person did, Angie. But I promise I won't do that. So if you've been a friend of mine, like, I won't do that. You can be frank on my friendship abilities. But it's just a hard topic.
It's a very hard topic.
I don't like it going backwards. So much time and effort to move it forward. And it seems like in a blink it goes backwards.
Sometimes it can, especially when people's priorities change.
Well, that's just wrong. People's priorities shouldn't change.
Maybe they shouldn't sometimes, but they do. So what are some of the experiences that you've had, Kyla, that kind of tipped you off that a friendship needed to end or that it needed to change?
As I've in more recent years been like learning about what boundaries are, that there are boundaries that are not just like physical, like a physical fence, but like what you are going to do when people have violated those boundaries or like push my boundaries continually, then that's when I know, okay, I'll need to either lessen the level of this friendship because they're not respecting my boundaries, or no, that's all I can really think of right now.
I think those are, it's a simple thing to say, but you could probably have a discussion for another hour or two about boundaries and understanding what your needs are and what you expect out of a relationship and what they expect out of you. I know one of the trickiest things for me, both in romantic relationships, but also probably even more so in friendships, is making the mistake of confusing like an intense connection with somebody for being investment from somebody.
Oh,
that's been, and it still is a difficult space for me. I'm still figuring out how to navigate that because I still need to do some work on figuring out what my needs are coming into friendships and relationships. I have such codependency issues that I'm the person that, I have no needs. Everything in your needs come first. Your needs always come first. It's not completely always that black and white, but I'm definitely, in order to keep the peace and to not hurt somebody or offend somebody, I put my needs to the side to keep things going with that friendship because I'm afraid of being rejected. I'm afraid of losing that friendship or that friendship just kind of dying down. And so that's a really complicated space for me where, because I think there's just some people that you connect with very intensely in life. Like you just have an instant chemistry, you have an instant rapport, you have a lot of things in common. And so it's just easy to fall into that space sometimes, especially for those of us who like uber fast, intense friendships, super fast. I don't know what that's like at all. It's easy for me to fall into that space of, because we have this instant fast chemistry and connection, that this is going to be a friendship that lasts my entire life. This is my new bestie forever. And we just, you know, like I want to spend as much time with that person as possible, and being able to take a step back and look at my actions and also the other person's actions and say like, okay, do we see this friendship in the same light? Like, is there an equal level of investment coming from that person? I'm spending this time getting to know them, getting to know what they're interested in, what they struggle with. Are they doing the same thing for me? Are they checking in with me? Are they interested in what I'm interested in? Are they aware of what's happening in my life that's hard? I'm not going to lie, that's a really difficult space for me to be able to say, like, just because I intensely connect with this person doesn't mean that they're investing in the relationship. And if they're not investing in the relationship, should I be giving that level of investment either?
That's a hard judgment. That is a hard place to actually judge, in my opinion.
Because it changes as well. Like, again, sometimes people's priorities in life shift, or sometimes people have unexpected demands in their life that come up that take away their time and their energy, and they're not able to invest in the friendship the way that they want to. And so like it lands into a difficult space of, what do I do with this friendship? Do I just, you know, give them some space and some grace? Sometimes that's the best thing to do. And just understand that if they had the time and the energy, they would invest more in the friendship, but they're not right now. Or is this a sign of like, yeah, this friendship is just not a priority for them? Like, they like me well enough and they like spending time with me, and sometimes they even like what they can get from me, but there's not an equal reciprocation happening. And so I need to take a step back and go down from like, I thought this was a level 4, but level 2. I don't know.
Well, I had a close friend recently who's been in the middle of a big project. And when I saw her, she's like, okay, the project is over. I'm going to be a good friend again. And just was upfront and honest about it, because she hasn't been as easy to contact and hasn't been reaching out. And I was like, there's grace right there. And I knew that was the reason, though, that there was a big project, because it came up in life. However, there are those places and people in moments where you don't understand fully why you're not connecting as much anymore. And there's that deep sense of being rejected and being seen as not worthy of friendship. And that's a tough place. And truthfully, excuse me, I would love to hear from any of our viewers on what they have seen in their lives with female friendships or with friendships. Because I would just be curious about your stories out there and what that's like for you, because it is a topic that you don't find on the bookshelves. There's going to be 20 self-help books about how to not procrastinate in life. But how many books do you really know that talk about the mourning that you go through for ending a friendship? Mm-hmm. It's like nobody wants to talk about it, and maybe that's because it's too painful.
It probably is too painful. I actually have a friend and a vocal student who recently wrote a song about her best friend breakup, because she had this really profound experience. And she's like, where's my breakup song? Like, why is nobody talking about it? Like, this is such a hard, profound experience. Like, this is worse than any romantic breakup that I've had. Where's my breakup song in the friendship space? So obviously she's gratefully a wonderful songwriter, and she wrote a song about it. I'll post it in the description links for people.
Yeah, you sent it to me, and I listened to it because of this friendship recently that I've had that I mourned for like a year and a half. And I listened to it and was like, oh my gosh, she was spot on.
Yeah.
And I appreciated it because I'm not taking a song and making the romantic to be interpreted. It was just what it was. And I thought she expressed it well. So that would be great. Thanks, Angie.
Yeah, I'll post it in the link notes. And I guess as we're kind of summing up our discussion today, I have a feeling that this is not going to be the last time that we talk about this. This is a very big subject for us in our friend group on the podcast. And I know this is probably a much bigger subject for people that we just don't talk about. It's culturally normal to talk about like a hard breakup with a romantic partner, but it is not really talked about very much in a friendship space, that they're just as important. It's a little bit different, but man, our friendships, they are so important to us in our lives. And there's probably more discussion that we need to have. So to everybody listening today, thanks for joining us. And we would love to hear your stories. We would love to hear your situations where you've had difficult friendships that needed to end or they needed to change, or you thought this person was going to be in your life forever and now they're not. And we would love to keep that conversation going, because I'm willing to bet that not just the three of us or those of us that are on the podcast have had this experience. I imagine a lot of people have had this experience. So let's change the cultural norm. Let's have more discussions about this so we can navigate this important and sometimes difficult subject together. So just know that we love you and thank you for joining us today. And we would love to hear your thoughts. So comment below in the comments or join us on the Facebook group. We would love to hear from you, or have even a private discussion. Hit us up, and keep standing for truth in these latter days. Everyone, have an amazing day. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.